Andrew Kim, the analyst for the NYXL, stated in an interview earlier this week that all his players say that NA and EU players are just as good as the Koreans now, and none of our players believe that there is a gap at all. Which of course kickstarted a lot of discussions in the internet, considering that all Korean teams are in fact still undefeated in this league. So during halftime, I snuck into the dugout of the Valiant and talked to their coach Cuddles about this. He said that he's agreeing. Kinda. I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically agreed. He did say that there is not a big gap in skill level across the board from those players. It's more the chemistry and the infrastructure the Korean teams currently have. And as the season will progress, he does expect this gap to close. I personally can't wait to see that happening, and also I can't wait to see if they can close the gap on map number 4. And for all the action, we're heading over to our very handsome caster duo once again.
Thank you very much, Zoe. Yeah, good to get a little bit of insight. Yeah. So, you know, Korean players and teams are starting to indicate that perhaps the gap is closing, and I'm using a very tired and very old adage there, but we're not seeing it on paper here, Matt. And that game was close. Again, it's going to be one of those like 3-1, 4-0 matches that were on paper not so close, but again, when you go back, we saw some incredible moments from the Valiant.
It's just the teamwork and chemistry at the end of these games and able to close it out. SabielB will come in for Pine. Janice will come in for Mono, some substitutions on the side of NYXL. Valiant will stay the same. It's just those, you know, those last plays, those initial pushes. Every time you see some of these rosters, you know, they have no ultimates coming into the fight. They somehow end up turn it in their favor. They're just so extremely talented, and it has to be, you know, crushing for, you know, some of these, you know, Western teams to go up against. Right, you have the ult advantage going into a fight. Everything's looking all good, and somehow, you know, whether it's NYXL, London Spitfire, Seoul Dynasty, they turn that fight around in their favor.
Not a feels good for a lot of those plays there, but again, now we're going to be heading over towards Numbani. A map that does, you know, offer us an opportunity to see again another different style of play. Dive, if LA Valiant want to play that, this is a great place for it, especially on that attacking side. Get up in the face, get aggressive. Defending, again, it's going to be a matter of just trying to stave off NYXL, because we know they can dive. We also know that they have, you know, Libero in this lineup who can bring us that Pharaoh. We didn't get to see it on that previous map of Oasis, but perhaps here it's time to bring it out.
Well, Libero can play so many different heroes. Just
about everything.
Yeah, just makes it very difficult to game plan against. If you are the Los Angeles Valiant, they could run dive here. We see 76 probably get played the most here on Numbani, you know, able on the defensive end to control some of the high ground. Use him to put a lot of pressure on an opposing Pharah. That comes into play, but we'll see what the Los Angeles Valiant decide to do. They will be on defense first here to kick things off. So potentially you have Silk Thread play the 76. He can play, you know, this Genji 76, a lot of different things. Yeah, Fade's going to go off the side. Not going to see the solo tank.
Oh yeah, triple support. We've seen it before. Just triple more support, on, more on, you know, previous maps than Hanamura, to be honest, in different metas. But okay.
So you see Avunko playing Zen, Kareem playing Mercy. Nothing too surprising here for the Los Angeles Valiant. Fate just keeps jumping off the side of the map here.
Right?
Eventually, you imagine he goes over to Winston or Orisa. And for NYXL...
Yeah, they can't play Orisa here, I don't think.
No, yeah. For NYXL, I'm interested because they run a ton of Orisa in this series, you know, whether it be, you know, attacking. We see Orisa more on defense. Janice will play Winston here, though. Libero will go over to Pharah, and SabielB will not be playing Tracer here. He'll be playing the McCree.
Yeah, so this is more about, it's a bit less about dive for the NYXL, more about getting the high ground control and using hit scan pressure from SabielB, and also Libero to keep heads turned towards him, so SabielB and the rest of the tanks from NYXL can jump in.
Look, it's a lot like when, you know, we talk about, you know, Pharah working with a Tracer, so to speak, right? The Pharah putting down damage, the Tracer finishing them off. This is a little bit of a safer option, right? Because they force them off with the high ground. With that Pharah, then you can get SabielB set up on the high ground, just putting shots in at a distance.
Ooh, that Discord orb there, making it very risky to hang around. Although Janice in a similar position, has to back away and get a little bit of HP, but again, it's free real estate for the NYXL. That's the most important part, and that was all that Jonok needed there to pick up Unco from a distance there. It's responded at the very least. So I gotta say, the Valiant are very good at, you know, making sure they even their score when they lose a player. They know when they need to get aggressive to make sure they don't get choked out slowly. Jonok gets rezzed up though.
There's no res that comes in for Kareem on Unco, that will come off spawn here. We've not really seen a ton of pressure put on Libero here in the sky, right? He's been able to get a ton of free damage down. Takes out soon. You lose Silk Thread as well. A nice rocket there. Almost gets Envy before he gets back in the mech. But NYXL with a very good calculated push here should be able to take point A. Looks like from the minimap perspective, the Los Angeles Valiant going to back out of here. Not going to challenge it again.
I love that from New York, though. That's just really stellar. I do think that Fate actually overshot his attempt at diving on them on that high ground. He actually fell over the balcony, over the edge, and then sort of had to walk back underneath. He could have been booped, though, in all fairness, in air by Meko. I just don't think that's what happened. Then I think the LA were in a position where like they had a Winston on the ground who was at half health, went in a position to dive, but now they want to start the fight again. Jonak trying to respect here, and he's back right away, getting plenty of healing. Trance is there if he needs it.
Silk Thread getting very close to attack visor. It's going to be Janus using his primal rage, just trying to stay alive on the point. It'll be Envy launching a self-destruct in the sky, and he's actually going to connect with Arc here. It's a big kill. Now no mercy in the fight here for New York Excelsiors. Jonak uses the Transcendence there as well, and I believe Libero towards the end uses that Rocket Barrage, maybe because you're going to switch off of the Pharah.
Well, he might want to here because the potential for, spawn camp or, being able to create a very atrocious scenario for the defenders is actually possible here. And I like this jump up here. So basically, Fate can use the high ground now, and it's going to allow him to drop down and access the enemy team, and then have a jump available when he needs it. Kind of what Miro showed us initially back at the World Cup a couple of years ago, which has now become a staple of every Winston's repertoire in terms of mechanical approaches. Ooh, hello, sticks it! Nicely done! And Arc, not a chance to respond to that one again. Soon just really cleaned it up perfectly, and that's going to give a bit more breathing room to the Valiant once again.
And winning these fights in the fashion that the Valiants are doing, you were able to build up both support ults, another attack visor yet again. Arc does have the Valkyrie here for NYXL. We'll see when he decides to do it though. Potentially coming around this corner. But you have both support ults on the other side, so you don't really want to burn your own Valk and then have everything just be negated by a Valk and Transcendence on the other side.
Yeah, interesting. Libero on the 76 now, so a little bit more of a safer style of play here for NYXL. NVC's Jonak on his own, but he's being healed up by the Mercy. This is why it's so hard to dive on these Zenyatas right now. So much healing provided from that back line, and the LA Valiant, of course, they kind of realized they had to commit to that fight, Matt. It doesn't work out.
And Mecha's Diva has been sick all series long.
Oh, they used both.
Lands a self-destruct on 2 players. They did use both support ults there, did the Valiant. They still have attack visor. They do have a Transcendence for NYXL, and your own attack visor coming in the next time. But man, Mecha, that 2-person self-destruct was huge. The Diva Mech flying over the top.
Now approaching this second checkpoint. The Valiant have a little bit to work with. Self-destruct might force people off the payload for a time at least. The tactical visor for Silk Thread is going to be hard to get. Kareem drops into that one. Savior being Jonak cleaned him up. He found Soon. I don't even know how he managed to do that. It's like he saw him coming. And Jonak just the Transcendence over that payload just to make sure they can get there. So pretty comfortable there. LA didn't have the plays in position, Matt, and didn't really have the ultimate economy to work with. Silk Thread dive with his tac visor. Not a great look on that second phase.
You get Unko out at the end of this fight. So New York may be able to make some progress through this underpass here. Potentially we see something change from the Valiant. You're still running the 76. You're playing around this tac visor. You have not gotten a great position to use it yet.
What are you trying to do here with your 76? I mean, both sides have one in all fairness.
I don't really know. There's not really a high ground you can get Silk Thread set up in. Here's going to be the tac visor that comes in from Libero. You get Unko soon and
another one. Beautiful.
Pushing
Libero
on forward.
Don't you love that though? Don't you love that they engage with the self-destruct? They force the tanks to split from the LA Valiant, and Libero has an easy firing range. Unko didn't last very long at all. That's so nasty.
And that's why you don't see Envy there with the defense matrix. Eat it on up. Savior Lee with a pulse bomb playing right near the spawn. We'll see if he can connect on one of the supports coming out the door.
Fate drops onto the payload here. Lower on health than Meko. Doesn't have a Mercy with him right now. And Envy's trying to protect the big Winston, but they need their own Mercy out on the point. Kareem, though, isn't quite there yet. Envy taken down. The support wasn't there for the LA Valiant. And New York, a slow start, but this is such a stellar finish. Kareem dropping down to Jonak now, and soon thought he was there, but he wasn't. And this is how you really put a bookend on an impressive and successful series. A solid attack there that was snarled up a little bit on that second phase, but really that was the only time the NYXL had trouble.
And when we're watching from that, free camp POV, you saw Envy on Diva come out of that left side door and get onto the payload to contest for the Valiant. And what happens? Sabiel B and Janus just go right for the other door. They use the pulse bomb. They get a ton of free damage on the players walking out. They finish off 2, then work their way back towards the payload to kill Envy. It's a really quick completion of the map on Numbani for NYXL. It's completing the map with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left in the time bank.
a very decent time, considering we talked often that this map is fairly long. So we see a couple of 76ers thrown in there, and sometimes it always feels to me like he's a little bit indistinct. Like, you know, he's not supposed to be sort of diving in. You're playing a 76 Tracer, always struck me as a very safe composition, right? Your 76 has his own sort of self-healing. He's got a little bit of a speed boost, of course. He can run around the place. He can sit in the back line. He can play aggressive slightly, but he's kind of a jack of all trades but king of none.
We've seen some really good 76 play, though, on this map. I can think of Bird Ring in one of the series that we casted. It's just phenomenal movement up top. You never had an idea where he was coming from, and he was able to just get a ton of free damage down. But when teams really start to pressure out these Soldier 76s and they can't get that high ground control, it's just not really providing a lot, right? It doesn't provide that burst damage like a McCree, right? Can just like one-shot a Tracer like cross-map, or even in the way the game is right now with the comps that we see, potentially like a Junkrat, right?
So like, I definitely feel the defensive 76 on this map, I think, paired up with the Ana, but on the attack, it would seem, we might not see it here, of course, but we saw Libero play it himself here. Perhaps
like,
just like
I would love to see the Valiant just go with a straight dive and just get Silk Dirt back on the Genji. I thought they were really giving it to New York on Horizon Lunar Colony with that setup.
Again, they'd have to be diving, I guess, Jonak or Arc at this stage, either the Ana or the Mercy. Dance and halves, we'll call it. How about that? Got that one from a bloke on Twitter. Cheers, bro. Give me my material. And the Valiant now going to make their way slightly forward. Envy seems to find Jonak here. Defense matrix, though. Yeah, straight behind him, of course. The whole time was Meko protecting that Ana. And the dive just fizzles out. Valiant don't get much for it. Again, trying to play that 76, maybe a slower roll, more controlling, trying to get that high ground left side space.
Well, usually you would see a 76 on the defensive end. This time we see the far end in that situation. So maybe the Valiant, they expect Libero to be playing the Soldier 76, set up top, and they just jump right in. And you have, I believe it was Meko and Jonas coming back down.
God,
that sick sleep dart there. Taking out Fate. But when you jump up top, you have both tanks coming in to protect the supports, and then you have the damage coming up right above your head from Libero. Very difficult to play against.
Yeah, it's tough. You've got so many angles to be checking now. Libero kind of can go in between this platform. So Silk Thread now, so this is maybe a bit of that, flexibility we're seeing from him. Going towards the Pharah here. He's being boosted up. He can't help his backline. He can't peel for them. Janus had a shield over the top. He had his own alone time with Unco there, and there was nothing the Frenchman can do about it. Now Silk Thread trying to go toe-to-toe with Libero in terms of those direct hits. It's a big ask for him. And the Valiant, the pieces are there. They're just not lining up.
And Soon has still been behind enemy lines in these fights, though. So he's just trying to, find a place where he can be the difference maker. Does have a pulse bomb. Saviel B finds him out now. So now that NYXL knows that Soon is behind, what does he decide to do? Still has the pulse bomb, probably looking to get it on a Jonak sitting on top.
Bet you he has top damage for his team on Nana even. We believe it at this rate. Fate going in again. Bubble drop down preemptively now. It's going to be Janus getting himself an Nana boost. Looking for Envy here. It should be an easy pick off. He is being killed, but the damage was there. It was 2-on-1 essentially. But Janus now back to the point. He knows that Unco's been slipped. And that was a beautiful follow-up there. The biotic grenade from Jonak from the high ground, just to ensure they got that kill on the Zen. The Valiant, having lost Unco now, know they need to get the heck back to where they were. And Unco could have had a chance to build up a transcendence in that fight. He's still not there yet.
Sleep Dart had to come like cross-map from this position. You see Jonak in all the way down below.
This guy's styling right now.
As Unco getting close to a transcendence. So it'll be the sustained support ult that comes online for the Valiant. On the other side for NYXL, though, you have a lot of other ults. And you have your Rocket Barrage here. See if Libero decides to use it.
Jonak now being pressured a little bit. Knows above him is not Winston. He is getting jumped upon. Give this thing, but Fate's already down. Self-destruct. Oh, it's found two. That's big for Envy. Both supports are down here for the Excelsior. It might be an opening. The Valiant are also lacking players. Meko tries to chase, make up the deficit a little bit more, but he can't quite get there. And that was the door open just what the Valiant needed to break in. Meko, got to get resuited. But again, lacking teammates here. He might just try and stall if anything else. But it does look like, by all accounts, the Valiant will be on the roll with the payload here.
Well, Meko's going to get onto the point. He's just going to try and contest it, and that's going to force the Valiant to just dive in deep because they know more spawners are coming in for NYXL. Saviel B gets a touch. See if it's enough. Janus gets onto the point as well. A lot of damage coming down here from Silk Thread. The Valiant will take point A, unlocking the payload. And you see Silk Thread being very aggressive, wants to take these players out.
Yeah, Again, hasn't think twice. The Soldier 76 was there. Valiant field was placed down. But it does look like the Valiant want to chase onto this. Fate, half HP. He's still happy enough to go forward. Self-destruct, hoping to catch some stragglers there. It was anything but no. Looks like all of Excelsior had taken cover in the shade, or at least inside. It might be time now for the Valiant just to be happy. They've got the payload, but NYXL are going to punish them for this. Give the nano boost over towards the Winston of Janus here, and soon remains behind enemy lines whilst his back line starts to get jumped upon himself. Overwhelming perhaps for Soon, and yeah, the combo of Libero and Saebyeolbe was too much.
You just see what Saebyeolbe does to opposing Tracers, forces them out of position. Now back at World Cup, a lot of talk was, Saebyeolbe running around the Harmony Orb, the Zenyatta on him. This time you actually saw Arc just healing him up, following him around, chasing Soon down there. As you see Libero getting very close to attack visor. Arc still has his Valkyrie. See, when you decide to see this one come out, Jonah just used his nano boost. He's going to get very close to another one here. They do get Janus out of position.
Getting caught in those close quarters against enemies, micro rockets maybe not advisable for Janus. Putting him back on the endangered species list, there's no doubt about that. Double support ultimates here for LA Valiant. We're close to the nano boost. This is super interesting, by the way. Dronak does not switch off the Ana here. Quite often we do see the Ana player go to the Zen. Dronak maybe wants to get like a nano visor or something for Libero.
It's because he hasn't died since that first point, right? They backed out and didn't have a chance to go back to the spawn. Switch there. So Dronak, he's going to use the nano boost here. You're going to use the Valkyrie as well. Bring him back into the fight. So both support ults here are being used for NYXL. There's the rocket barrage out of Silk Thread. Looking around, he's got players flying in his face. Doesn't want to put those shots into Meko because he'll just blow himself up with it. Jonat's still alive here, getting healed up by his Mercy. They finally deal with him. New York just wasting a lot of time here for the Valiant.
This has been a really big performance from Silk Thread in this map. The Farah's looking real nice from him so far. And the rest of his team are backing up, but the Tactical Visor comes late in the day, and it's forced the Valiant off of the payload, essentially. But they get back after a couple of resurrects are applied. Envy brought back to life. Silk Thread can play above the payload here, and there's just too many targets for the NYXL to focus down. And now the Valiant have a chance to take a crack at taking this to an overtime.
It does force the Valiant, though, the Tac Visor and getting a few kills, to use their Valkyrie to put that point away. So now soon we go on with his POV. Just hanging out here in the bush. Just waiting for some players for NYXL. Walk on by, maybe land a big pulse bomb. See who the target of it is. Stuck on a Janus. Ooh, he goes back. He almost actually blows himself up there.
Again, it's hard to know where you were always 2 seconds prior. It's another layer of thinking you need to apply. But Soon wants to, again, take from the periphery here. Saebyeolbe doesn't want to let him set up here and continue to get Hornet in the side, but they dive on Libero here. Despite the mobility the Soldier 76 has, they managed to chase him down regardless. Military training and biotic enhancement, apparently not enough. Meko with a D-suit though, he's out of this one. Saebyeolbe eats a Helix rocket, and this might be LA keeping this one exciting for us here. Valkyrie comes in, so Saebyeolbe is back and ready to fight. The rest of them being kept up tip-top shape by Arc, and Jonak's about to join the fight. He has Transcendence.
Yeah, you're gonna have Janus come in with Primal Rage. He's gonna get rezzed up by Arc. We'll see if he decides to use Primal. He pops it right now. Jonak as well coming off spawn. Probably don't need the Transcendence. Gonna force the LA Valiant out. Only a minute to go here, Mitch. The Los Angeles Valiant. You're gonna have Soon getting close to a Pulse Bomb. You're gonna have Fareed and Unko with both support ults here. So you have both support ults going up against the one support ult for the side of NYXL. Keep an eye on Meko as well with that self-destruct. He picked a big two-person self-destruct on the offensive side. Maybe he can put it in a good position here around this corner.
This is Death Alley for those self-destructs, Matt. We see so many teams get caught out on the L-shaped road. Soon knows a little bit of tickle damage will give him his pulse bomb. He doesn't want to deal with Saebyeolbe right now, though. He's looking for bigger targets or a support. Anything to give the Valiant an advantage. But everywhere he goes, it's the Monkey or it's the Tracer that is harassing him. He needs to get into the back line to apply this one. Now the self-destruct going to force him forward. Pulse bomb doesn't connect with anyone there. It does at least force the supports away from the Excelsior, but there needs to be more than that. With the Transcendence being applied, Silk Thread has an opportunity to go for a Tactical Visor, but he's being pressured. There's still a Diva mech on the field, and of course a Winston that can put the bubble down, not to mention the Transcendence. There's too much for Silk Thread to cut through, and that's the reality of playing 76 right now, Matt. So hard to make the damage stick, but they're making it work regardless. Libero falling here. There's a very low arc, and Fate finishes off the job. Janus down. An opportunity here. Saebyeolbe cut down on the payload. They're going to roll straight forward, and the Los Angeles Valiant give themselves at least another shot at making this a competitive map.
And Fate kills Arc at 99% as soon as he gets Valkyrie. The play there for NYXL was to use that Transcendence, stall the fight out as long as possible. You already had all the ults burnt out of the side of the Los Angeles Valiant. Get that Valkyrie up. You bring the tanks back up into the fight. They have that large HP pool, and then also with the healing that Valkyrie provides up in the sky, keep some of those players up, you get your DPS players back in the fight, then you hold on the defensive end. Didn't work out though. It'll be the Los Angeles Valiant here on defense.
I feel
2
like
minutes and 45 seconds on the clock for New York.
I feel like we kind of saw one of the reasons why it's tough to have great success or make big plays individually as a 76 player right now. Silk Thread had that tactical visor, but there were no less than 3 mechanics to prevent his damage from actually meaning anything. Transcendence was there, of course. The the bubble from Winston. I'm losing it, right? We're getting close to the end, and of course defense matrix, right? So it's very, very hard to have an impact there. 76 is all about being able to do damage from a safe location, but now Overwatch is rewarding players that take risks and get close to enemies, trying to force their mistakes out. And 76 has to, he's kind of like a damage stick. You just try and give yourself a higher overall DPS, you throw him in the mix. And good work to Silk Thread to making that happen there, but again, it's tough, it's a grind.
Well, you also have to think about the position that he's in when he uses that tac visor. He comes around the corner. The players can go to either side, get out of the line of sight. You have your tanks, they can sit right behind the payload. You have the Transcendence as well. There's not a lot of area where he can get things done. It'll be New York Excel here on offense. They're going to run Libero on the far yet again. We'll see if they can force down Silk Thread from the high ground.
So now here's a response. This dive is what the Valiant recognizing here that they've got a McCree is going to be vulnerable. That was beautiful. They know that NYXL want to take the high ground control, but they don't want to approach it through the hallway. They want to jump up directly. Clean as a whistle, man. A good start here for the Valiant. Again, holding off the NYXL, he will give them a draw in this map. It will still ultimately result in a 3-0 series and a loss series. But this is important for them, not only to show the fans, but also the experience to continue to get out of NYXL.
You see that little golden tick at the top of the screen around the A. That's all the progress that New York needs to get on point A.
33.3%.
To win the map. So you see the dive that came in from Soon. Really good adjustment by the Los Angeles Valiant here.
Reminds me of the old Rogue dives, Matt. Really nice and clean. It looks like this one is just as good. So with the replay up, we got to see a little bit of how it began here. Libero trying to make it happen with Farah. But now Silk Thread again. Farah not often protected by things like defense matrices, so a 76 can constantly apply pressure if the Farah is not being attended by a Mercy.
Well, when they dive really aggressive on the high ground, the Los Angeles Valiant, the Farah really can't do much there because you have the Winston bubble that comes in from Fate. You also have the defense matrix up there, just fighting in this close quarter area with so much help. Let's see, it looks like New York gonna try and go down towards that bottom side. It's still a play to try and control the high ground. Just going around that bottom side doesn't give an easy area for the Valiant to dive up onto it.
Janus just got stuck with a pulse bomb there, and that seems like it was enough to slow down the NYXL, at least for the time being. There's going to be both support ultimates here for LA Valiant. Jonak might not have his at this stage. He probably really wants it in this fight, so we might see NYXL play slower. Jonak just try and get a little bit more damage in these fights. But now all this is nasty. Primal Rage going to be knocking people off the edge if they're not careful. Savior, we just got completely burst. Vaporized as Fate just ran straight towards him, but of course it's going to be the obligatory resurrections coming out now. Kareem and Ark both providing. Stun on the Fate. He needs to get away, but he might be pressured down here. It's going to be the tactical visor for Silk Thread. Janus just dancing in and out of his bubble here, trying to stay safe, but it's not going to be enough. Silk Thread pressures him down. Janus getting rest again. Ark over the fight. Fate also quite low, getting attended to by his Mercy, the Transcendence. Silk Thread couldn't get to the healing. He was kept away from Unko's Transcendence and went down, but Soon's doing work in his absence.
And you actually had Libero. He was going for that rocket barrage there, and then the Transcendence comes out from Unko, decides not to use it. Janus with the Primal Rage, trying to stay alive at the point here, gets hit with a Pulse Bomb. Launched up into the sky, the Valiant will hold on D.
A staunch defense from the Los Angeles Valiant means that the map stays. It's a 3-3 in total, no points awarded. Obviously Excelsior, but a very strong first string map to take in this series, but there have been promising signs. Like, I don't really like doing this all the time, like throwing in constellations just for the sake of it, but it's been quite the series, Matt. We really have seen some great stuff from both these sides.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Valiant did play New York very tough, but still New York with a 3-0 win here. A huge win for NYXL, a statement win early in the season.
So much to talk about on the desk as we're going to head to them after the break. Both of these teams giving us some of them highlight moments, but New York continue to rise up.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and Omen by HP. New York gets the win today, but LA still got the weather. That's all we can really talk about in the positives here for Los Angeles, because this was all New York. After halftime, we expected a big Game 3 coming up, and that's exactly what we got. Johnny, let's jump into Oasis here, because coming in, we had just watched the matchup between Dallas and Houston. In that, Dallas was running around with a less mobile composition, a much slower composition. Meanwhile, Houston, very agile, very mobile. We got basically the same thing here in this one, with LA Valiant being very mobile and New York Excelsior being that death ball.
Yes, but they had Pine in the lineup. Welcome to the Pine show. Just popping off on the McCree. And the thing about Pine is they're playing a very slow composition on the side of New York Excelsior, but Pine is playing so proactively. He's always trying to look for these picks, and it makes it so hard for the Valiant to set up their dives correctly and find spots of weaknesses. If they dive onto Pine, there is so much room for risk in their dives, of course. So Pine playing so proactively, it's so dangerous.
But it's not just Pine. The supports, I think, are doing a little bit more heavy lifting than you would typically expect, because when you're running the Orisa Roadhog, obviously these huge, beefy front lines, they end up soaking a lot of damage, essentially taking a lot of healing, and the supports get to deal way more healing than anybody else. So the supports on New York had actually 10k more healing than the ones on the Valiant, which resulted in one more Valkyrie, one more Transcendence, and while it might not sound like much, these are all game-winning ultimates. So the fact that you got two more on your side means if you're going to try to dive Pine, it's going to be that much harder.
I was also very impressed by Meko in this game. Switching over to the Roadhog, you saw that teamwork between the Orisa throwing out her right click, and then, of course, that hook bringing them right in. So many times they got the picks and were able to just steamroll against the Valiant. When the Valiant was battling back on this control map, though, what was going well for them, Reinforce?
Well, they managed to find spots of weaknesses, of course. New York Excel, with Pine playing so proactively, sometimes he goes a bit too far, and Valiant can find a pick or two, and then you see the supports make rotations, you see the Orisa make rotations, etc. And so New York Excelsior, they sort of split up, and that's where the dive composition from Valiant shines, because they managed to just scramble their way through the fight.
So far, we've seen Pine come in 3 times, and it's always been on control. Do you think we should send them into the starting lineup for other maps?
No, not yet. I think Control is the only one you can really do it thus far, because they play this slow style. We see New York Excelsior on other maps. They're playing the dive with Libero, for example, or they play the Junkrat with the Widowmaker, which Pine can play, but so far on Control, you need the McCree specifically for the Orisa composition.
Also, Sebiobi did call Pine a Widow 1 trick. We know he plays McCree, but what if he actually only is comfortable playing these two heroes? That Libero might offer more flexibility that is suited for other maps.
I saw Pine during the preseason. I know he can do a lot more than that. I think we all know that. Let's move it on to map number 4. Numbani's loading up, and it's going to be... let's start here with the highlights, guys. Basically, should just start off with the Valiant soon. In the opening game, we saw the Pharah come in. Libero on that Pharah, which is wrecking house up until they were able to slow things down on this second stage. Johnny, just talk me through how New York opened up on their attack.
Well, actually, Jonak just got a pick. And that's pretty much how they secure the fight.
That's all it is.
We've seen it time and time again. Jonak gets the picks. He got a pick onto Silk Thread. And what do you do have to counter the Pharah? No, Libero was just free. He didn't have any pressure from a Soldier or a McCree or any kind of hit scan. I mean, Anko maybe on a Zenyatta can shoot down the Pharah from the sky, but it's not too reliable. So they managed to get a pick onto Silk Thread, and then Libero on the Pharah can just ease their way through.
Oh, there was so much space for Libero. He actually ended up hitting 28% of his team's damage share on the Soldier and that last push, which is really impressive considering there's 6 people on the team. So 28% is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
All right, so Libero was on the Pharah at the start, but we're going to take a look at him on the Soldier 76. And Johnny, talk me through the composition switch from New York on the attack.
Yeah, so you want to play the Soldier here, I think, because it is a bit more passive, and I think they prefer it a bit. Libero on the Soldier, he played real well, but it was a bit of a misplay from Envy, I think, in both of these fights, because he didn't shut him down with the defense matrix. We saw on point B, for example, Envy used the self-destruct, and that means that there's no defense matrix to shut down Libero. And then on the final point, we see the tactical visor coming up from Libero, and then again, Envy is nowhere to be found with the defense matrix. So a bit of a misplay from Valiant. Maybe they had already taken the loss, they weren't playing as coordinated, but Libero on the Soldier is shining because of Envy's mistake.
Person that stood out to you the most on just map number 4, Crumbs?
From both teams?
Both teams.
I
One of the 12 players you can pick.
I think it was Libero for me, as reinforces mentioning, because we were trying to look at other players to stand out just to try to get a gauge of where they're at. And Libero, I think, went under the radar for most of the other matches. He was just doing his job. He gets subbed out by...
He's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, exactly. He's the jack of all trades. And typically these kinds of players are seen as master of none. But he actually is not that. He actually does master a lot of these heroes too, which is impressive.
All right, well, we were definitely highlighting a number of players from the New York XL throughout this series. They walk away with the victory, so it's no surprise that it's going to be a New York player that is our player of the match, sponsored by Omen by HP. But it's not the guy you thought it is. No Saviolbi, no Pine. It's Meko. Yes, the tank is getting some love today, and it all started here on Junkertown for me. He gets a big pick on Bastion as Baby Diva, and then goes on to pick both supports. That is a momentum changer.
Yes, known as one of the best divas in Korea for the longest time. A bit questioned on his role because his Zarya play isn't really up to par, but he really shined, especially on the diva and also the Roadhog here on control. So this guy really shining in the off-tank.
He actually ended up dying only 3 times on the Roadhog on the 3-map Oasis point, and him and his tanking partner ended up dying half the time than the LA Valiant. So
Meko and Mono staying up all game, wrecking all night. Here's a look at the total number. 29,000 damage was dished out by Meko while he is on his diva. You saw those self-destructs so crucial on the final map, Numbani. That's really what opened up this Streets phase. So that is going to be our player of the match, sponsored by Omen by HP. Big congrats to Meko. He put on a show for us all. We're 2 matches done, but we still have 1 more to go. It's a battle to find out who is going to establish themselves officially in our top 6. Will it be the Philadelphia Fusion or the LA Gladiators? We find out on the other side of the break. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Intel and